Hello and welcome to episode 3 of List Management Monday. On today's episode, we'll be covering off the next 4 clubs on the AFL ladder in Fremantle, Gold Coast, Essendon and Carlton football clubs. We will give a short summary on the Academy Zone and where each zone is located for each 4 clubs. And Greg Truman will be covering the Next Generation Academy and give a short summary on that process. We'll also be covering a very important date coming up on the 10th of September, this Thursday, in Are You OK Day. If you'd like to skip ahead to certain clubs, we will have a timestamp below. But let's get started. Before we begin, we're going to be looking at the Academy zones. So we will scroll over to Western Australia to begin. So we're going to look at the Fremantle Football Club. And if we start on the northern tip of Western Australia, as you can see around these communities up here, they've got that area. If we scroll down through the central region of Western Australia, up to around Geraldton, and then we're going to go down a bit further and along the coast. And then they've got Rottnest Island, all that around that area up there, and they've got this little area around the more densely populated area of Western Australia. As you can see, however, West Coast Eagles share about a 50-50 split amongst the Western Australian regions. So that's the Fremantle Football Club. And if we scroll over through to the Gold Coast Suns, as you can see, that Torres Strait up from Papua New Guinea down through Cape York, through Townsville, down to more of that central region of Queensland, joining the Brisbane Lions Academy, and then they've also got the Gold Coast Capital in that region there as well. They did in fact have this area of the Northern Territory allocated to them, but with the agreement of the draft concessions over the past 2 seasons, they actually gave that up to the Hawthorn Football Club, due to having more area than Brisbane in Queensland now. If we scroll down to Victoria, we're going to look at the Essendon Football Club. And as we can see, the northwestern side of the metro region of Victoria has been allocated to Essendon. So in this area too, it has less populated area, dense populated area up north, so more of their talent is going to come from that Maribyrnong area down here in the western suburbs. Essendon Football Club also have an area in the Northern Territory. As you can see, they've got the Melville Islands up here and that northern tip of Western Australia, Northern Territory as well. So they've got all that area allocated to their zone. The next club that we're going to look at today is the Carlton Football Club. And if we scroll down here, so they've got the entire northern metro region where they've allocated their talent. So that's their area here in Victoria, which outside of Collingwood is probably the most densely populated area for their talent. They do not have a zone outside of Victoria. However, they do share this little mixed zone here in the Northern Territory with all the Victorian clubs that can access the talent in these communities. So going on that, we're just going to discuss a little bit about the academy process and the Next Generation Academy process. So speaking about the multicultural zones. Greg.
Yeah, so with the Next Gen Academy especially, it was brought in as an answer for clubs that didn't have an academy. So originally it was Brisbane and Sydney that had academies to try and grow the game in that area. And then the remainder of the clubs didn't have academies. So it was brought in as a way to bring in some more multicultural players to the game, and also give the Victorian clubs and South Australian and Western Australian clubs a chance to develop talent from a young age. So it pretty much in cases, so any English-speaking nation they're not included as a general rule of thumb. So any native English-speaking nation, those players from those regions would have to be put on a Category B rookie. But any non-English speaking nations, they then fall in within an NGA or next-gen framework. So if you look, say, Brendan, if you can zoom in on Collingwood Zone. So Collingwood Zone here is quite densely populated, as you can see. So if there's a kid there, normally from the age of 13 and up, in that zone that has a parent that's born in one of these non-English speaking countries, or the player themselves is born in that area, they then qualify for the Next Gen Academy. Now, there is a little bit of grey area there because, for example, one country that we see pop up often, and Brent and I have both seen it with a few players, is South Africa, which you'd think is an English-speaking country. But in reality, because one of their major languages is Afrikaans, any player that has a parent born in South Africa actually qualifies for that zone. Starting from next year, we don't know if the system's going to go ahead in the same fashion as what it is now. At the moment, it looks like it's going to be an AFL run scenario instead of a club run scenario. Brendan, do you have any more information on that?
Thanks, Greg. As we move over to the AFL Next Generation Academy summary page, but in terms of the direction for the AFL pathway system going forward, the AFL had to change their system due to a number of reasons, including the COVID situation where they've had to cut a lot of resources and costs and a lot of jobs. But in terms of the development process, they want to resemble somewhat of a European soccer system for their pathway. This in turn will give a more equal opportunity amongst the players in each zone because they're being developed under the one umbrella, so that it'll allow AFL clubs to venture out and identify more talent across each region. But in terms of the summary of the AFL Next Generation Academy, each AFL Academy Zone player is trained under that one umbrella currently for their development pathway in each allocated zone for each allocated club. Each AFL club has first priority to bid on the next generational talent and will need to match points allocated on draft night in case another club bids on that certain player. We may see that this upcoming draft in 2020 with potential emerging talent Jamara Ugle-Hagan, who is from Warrnambool inside the Western Bulldogs Academy Zone player. He's been touted as a number one pick. So if Adelaide want to bid on that player, Western Bulldogs will have to match it with their points. In terms of the multicultural rule, to qualify under this rule, you must have been born or have a parent born from a culturally diverse background in a non-English speaking country, or you must be an Indigenous Australian background in that region. In terms of 2021 and beyond, the AFL organisation will run each pathway and next generation system under either a metro banner or a country banner, and the zone and draft concessions will change as a result.
Okay, cool.
And welcome to the first team this week. We're going to be looking at the Fremantle Dockers Football Club, and I'm going to hand it over to Greg Truman.
Thanks, Brendan. So as you can see on the screen there, Freo is currently sitting in 14th position, and they've got the 18th oldest list in 2020, and they're also the 17th most experienced list this year. As you can see from the age profile, they've got 1 over 30, which is David Mundy. They've got 5 from 28 to 30. They've got a good age bracket there from 23 to 27. And they've drafted heavily in the last few years with the 18 to 22-year-olds. Their A-grade players is Brownlow medalist Nat Fyfe, and their emerging talent, you've got Sean Darcy as their main ruckman, Andrew Brayshaw, Hayden Young, Adam Serra and Caleb Sarong, which were all drafted from Victoria. Their needs this year are definitely a key position forward and key position defenders. Untouchables, you've got Michael Walters, Brayshaw, Fife and Darcy. And for 2021 and beyond, they've got to draft the best available key position talent and trade in mid-range depth. And trade in mid-range depth of talent. So with Freo in the last few years, they started in 2016 when they went after Cam McCarthy. They failed heavily there in that trade, giving up pick 3, which ended up being Hugh McCluggage at Brisbane. And then they went after Hogan, which they gave up 6 and 23, which ended up being Ben King at Gold Coast. Now, Brendan, I know you followed Ben King quite well, and you and I both know that hindsight's a wonderful thing, but it seems that Freo's really failed in trying to get that key position forward since Pavlich left.
Yep. So over the past few seasons, Fremantle have already looked at needs, and they wanted to fast track, obviously, getting back into the top 8 throughout their rebuild. So they've looked at their first draftee trade was Cam McCarthy. Cam McCarthy didn't work, so then they looked at chasing Rory Lobb and gave a bit up for Rory Lobb. Then from Rory Lobb, obviously, they drafted in Matthew Taberner, giving him games throughout that period. But then they looked at Jesse Hogan, who, again, probably hasn't worked out to what they wanted this year to fast-track their development.
Yeah. And it looks like this year they'll end up with, pick 4 or 5 at this stage. So from what I can see, I think they need to stay with the WA talent, and I think they're going to go after Logan McDonald quite heavily. Is there anyone else that you think they'll go after?
If they can't get Logan McDonald, and if he goes earlier than pick 5, obviously they've got their academy talent, but I don't think any other clubs are going to chase them this year. The other talents they're going to look at are probably the South Australian key forward, which
Riley
Thilthorpe.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'll look at Denver Granger Barras, who is a key defender, which they also lack in that department.
Beautiful.
Let's go.
So now onto the Gold Coast Suns, which currently sit 13th on the ladder. So their list average age is 23.4, which makes them the 17th oldest list in 2020. And the average games is 51, which is the 18th most experienced list in 2020. So their age profile, you can see, is very heavily based on drafting, with their ages of 18 to 22 being the largest on their list. 23 to 27, they've got a good age range bracket again. They're at 17. 28 to 30, they've got 4. And 30 plus, they've got 3. So we haven't included Gold Coast Suns with A-grade talent, as we see the majority of their emerging talent being A-graders, but at this stage it's just too early to tell. So you've got emerging talent, you've got Lukosius, Rankin, King, Rowell and Anderson. They're untouchables. Sam Collins, Weller, Took Miller, Charlie Ballard, Lukosius, Rankin, Ben King, Rowell and Anderson. So we find that their needs need to be some mature age recruits, which we believe they can pick up in free agency. They need to continue to draft the best available talent and trade in free agency mature bodies to help their young emerging list come through. Now, Brendan and I were talking before this recording started, and we believe that the last 2 years of their drafting especially has been perfect. And we think that it will build a great foundation for them moving forward, especially with Rowell and Anderson controlling that midfield. We also believe that Peter Wright will probably be traded at the end of this year, and they're going to need to find some more of that key position player stock just in case for injuries for Ben King and also to cover Lukosius. Brendan, what are your thoughts?
Yep. So just to add on that, as you can see with the untouchables that we've listed, you're looking at genuinely their spine. So they're going to look for those mature age bodies to complement the Fab Five, as I like to call it. So Lukosius, Rankin, King, Rowell and Anderson. Being untouchable, they're going to build the club around that talent, and all 5 obviously have extended their contracts for the next 2 years at least. So they're really going to start building on that, and I see them playing finals in the next year or 2. Obviously still inexperienced for a list, but they were on the right track. All right, moving on. So we're going to move on to the Carlton Football Club, who are currently sitting 12th on the AFL ladder. Their list size is at 46. As you can see, 6 rookies, 1 Category B. Their list average age is 23.8, which is the 14th oldest list in the AFL, and their average games is the 9th most experienced at 63.1. Their age profile, age 18 to 22, they've got 22 players, which means heavily drafted squad. Their 23 to 27 is 17. They've only got 1 player aged between 28 and 30, and they've got 6 above 30, which is their experience, Cade Simpson at 35, and then they've got Eddie Betts, Mark Murphy, Matthew Cruiser, Ed Curnow, and Levi Casbolt, rounding out that 30 to 32 age bracket. With Carlton's list, as we can see, we believe that their only A grader is Patrick Cripps. But they've got a lot of emerging talent coming through, which they've drafted in or traded in. So Mark Pitney at 23 years of age, a bit of a mistake for the opposition club in Hawthorn letting him go. He's going to be a very serviceable player, similar to Matthew Cruiser. Hopefully Mark Pitney can stay on the park, because Matthew Cruiser should have and could have been an A grader if he stayed on the park. Will Setterfield, who they traded in previous years, at 22 years of age, he's really showing what potential A-grade talent he was drafted to be when he was drafted at pick 5 for the GWS Giants. Jacob Wiedering, although he's been around for the last 4 years, he's still only 22 years of age, and obviously can play both ends of the ground, so he's an emerging talent still. And Harry McKay didn't get enough opportunities under Brendan Bolton, but David Teague really sees the potential in this player, and Harry McKay, again, can play both ends of the ground, but was drafted as a key forward, so we'd like to see a bit more goals from him. The untouchables for the Carlton Football Club is obviously Sam Doherty and Patrick Cripps, 2 of their mid-range top talents. Jack Martin, who they brought in on the trade free agency period last year. As I said, Mark Pitney, Will Setterfield, Jacob Wiedering, and Harry McKay, I believe, are also untouchables as they round out the spine for the Carlton Football Club. After heavily drafting in the last few years, the needs for Carlton, we believe, is the experience between that 25 to 28-year-old age group, the goal-kicking power. Carlton Football Club have really good midfield depth, but I do believe they need that goal-kicking power, and that's why they chased Tom Papley last year, and I believe they're going to chase him again end of this year, because Tom Papley is a genuine small forward goal-kicking talent. For 2021 and beyond, they'll continue to draft the best available talent. But as I said, they're going to trade in free agency, but they're going to look at needs more than quality talent. So they're going to look at filling holes in different areas. Greg, thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are with Carlton is I think they're in a good position, but they really need to rejig that forward line. So either get in some more key position backs and move Wiedering forward, or go into the mould of someone, say, like Tabner at Freo, where they can bring in someone who's maybe in that 25, 26 age bracket. And as we discussed earlier, maybe even Peter Wright from the Gold Coast Suns might be a good play that they can bring to the list for next to nothing, that they might be able to get some serviceability out of. So I really think they need a forward line rejig. I really love the addition of Pitney this year. I always thought he'd be a Darren Jolly type of ruckman. He's really showing to be that. So if they can get their forward line right, I think their midfield's set. I think their back line's, getting there. And I really think that, the Blues fans can finally have some success after a long period of pain.
Yep, so now moving on to the Essendon Football Club. Bit up and down the previous 2 seasons, and obviously their coaching structure has been altered a bit, and they're going in a new direction as of 2021. But they currently sit 11th on the AFL ladder. Their list size is at 47, with 6 rookies and 2 Category B. Their list average age is at 24, so that's the 11th oldest list in the AFL, and their average games is at 57.2, which is the 14th most experienced list in the AFL. So they're quite a young list. Their age profile, so their oldest players on their list, Cale Hooker, David Zaharakis, and Tom Chambers. They're all from that 31 to 32 age bracket. But then you're looking at 23 in the 18 to 22 age bracket. We've got 17 and 23 to 27, 4 in the 28 to 30, and obviously 3 in the 30 plus. Essendon Football Club, in my opinion, do not have any genuine A-grade talent at the moment due to different circumstances such as injury. Dylan Shield, I believe, was traded in to be an A-grade talent. However, he hasn't really been consistent enough over a long period of time since coming into the club. Andrew McGrath is probably their closest talent to be A-grade, and also, in my opinion, will be their next captain after Dyson Heppell. Joe Danaher is an A-grade talent if he were able to stay on the park. There is a lot of hype and around his talent, and he is a very good, genuine key position forward, but obviously with his injuries and the rumours of him in discontent amongst the list, he is not a A-grade talent. And then there's Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti. He is close to being an A-grade talent, but it comes down to consistency. Some weeks he'll kick 4 goals, and other weeks he'll just have about 5 to 10 minutes of utter brilliance, and then he'll get shut down. So he still needs to learn how to develop that area of his game and try and get out of those little funks during games when he's been shut down. Untouchables, Andrew McGrath, Dylan Shield, Devon Smith, Jordan Ridley, who's really come on this year and is potentially going to make the All-Australian side. Adam Sard, who drives their half-back line with their run and carry. And then obviously Anthony McDonald-Tipungwuti. Their emerging talent is Andrew McGrath, Jordan Ridley, Kyle Langford, and Sam Draper, who are around that 20 to 23-year-old age bracket. The needs for the Essendon Football Club going forward, in my opinion, is that key position depth, which they have lacked over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and in particular with their ageing list in Cale Hooker and Michael Hurley and such others. They're going to have to look to replace them in the next few years. And they do lack that inside midfield depth. So they need support around the Andrew McGraths, the Dyson Heppells, and Dylan Shields to add to their midfield. And 2021 and beyond, I think they're in a little bit of a mini rebuild at the moment under their change of coaching structures. So they'll look to draft the best available talent, whether it be midfield or key position, and they'll look to gain a couple more draft picks end of year, I believe. Thoughts, Greg?
Yeah, my thoughts are very similar to yours, Brendan. I think that they are going to go into a mini rebuild, as much as it pains me to say it for the Essendon supporters. I think with Joe Danaher either being injured a lot or looking to move on at the end of the year with a key forward of only Jake Stringer, they're going to lack the ability to kick a lot of goals. So they really need to go after a forward that can put them on the scoreboard more often than not. And as you know, they're really lacking in their tall stocks. I think the trend overall for the AFL is if you look at say the top 5 forwards at the moment, they're all older key forwards, which Joe Danaher is starting to become. So if they can keep him around and not let him go to Sydney, I honestly think that if they can add one more tall forward, then they've got it sold if they can keep him on the park. If not, and if he leaves, I see Essendon probably taking another year or two to get that player in and actually start pushing and rebuilding, and hopefully under a new change of coach and some behind the room changes that they can really push to make the finals.
Well, you see, just adding on the possibility of Joe Danaher leaving, it's really a Band-Aid effect. If Joe Danaher was to leave end of year, they'll either put Michael Hurley or Cale Hooker permanently at full forward until they actually develop. So if Joe Danaher does leave, I see their first round pick being one of the top key forwards.
Agreed. Yeah, and at this stage, probably the one that they'd be looking at based on their ladder positions, probably Denver Granger Barris. So that'd be the player that I'd be looking at if I were them to bring in. Look, Joe Danaher, we know when he's on the park is very, very special to watch. But for the last 3 years, he hasn't been there, and Essendon have really suffered carrying him. So fingers crossed for him and for them that he stays and gets fit. But I believe in the next 2 to 3 years they're going to have a tough time kicking goals.
Just before we complete today's episode, we wanted to touch on a very important message. And for those that know me, I'm a big advocate on mental health awareness, in particular youth mental health, and Greg would agree. In our area of expertise in the industry, as development coaches and recruiting staff, we often build a huge rapport with the talent coming through because we have to get to know them on a personal level. And often we meet a lot of youth athletes that are going through a lot behind the scenes that not many people see, or they don't want to share. So we're often brought into their support network. And just, with the whole lockdown scenario, the Are You OK Day is on Thursday, 10th of September, so this upcoming Thursday. And I really encourage everyone to check on their friends and their family. And this should be happening every day, but this is a reminder that, Are You OK Day is a really important date on our calendar. So the first couple of steps obviously is ask, are you okay? Just to check in on the individual. And then obviously listen to them and what they have to say. Number 3 is encourage the action. So if they are really struggling and there is an area you cannot help with, encourage an action plan with the broader support network. And then number 4, obviously, is check in. So check in again. Always be there for them. There's been situations where, on a personal note, that there's times where I'm always there to listen, always there to help out, but there's some scenarios where you can't help. So just being there means more to the person struggling than what you think. So I encourage that for the next few weeks of lockdown is to really check in on both your friends and your family, because you never know what someone's going through. Correct.
Yeah. I agree with you, Brendan. And also, just further to that, if anyone does need to reach out and you don't have a support network, Brendan and I's messaging services are always open. So if you need someone to chat to or you need to reach out during these tough times, just give us a yell. We always love a chat. Talk to us about footy all day long. Talk to us about movies or music, whatever you want to talk about, we're all ears. So, we really support Are You OK Day, and we try and bring this into a philosophy of our lives, and hopefully everyone out there is doing all right. And I know we had some big announcements yesterday with lockdown. Fingers crossed it's sooner rather than later that we can get out of there. But if you are struggling and you need a hand or you just want to have a chat, give us a yell, and we're more than happy to have to have a discussion over whatever you're going through.
Yep, agreed. And we will see you in the next episode with the next couple of teams.
Fun, eh?